Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode here at Bulletproof Selling. My name is Sean Rhodes, the Chief Sales Sergeant at Bulletproof Selling and author of the book Bulletproof Selling, a guide for systemizing sales on the battlefield of business. Now, here at Bulletproof Selling, we believe that hope is not a sales strategy. And so, whether you are a CRO all the way down to that frontline salesperson, you're the one that is beating feet on the street every single week, making sure that value is delivered. Hope probably factors into your strategy more than you think it does. And how do I know that? Well, as a war correspondent inside the U.S. Marine Corps, as a sergeant, I was able to follow some of the highest performing people on the planet. Folks who understood the danger that hope could play if it entered their plans. And if these folks were dedicated to, after every single mission, after every single sales call, so to speak, taking the time to figure out how they could get better, then you, no matter where you are in your sales career, your sales journey, you could take the time out to examine and where could I remove just a little more hope. Maybe you're miles down the road, maybe you're just starting out and realizing hope probably factors in more than I want it to. Well, you are in the right place if you're interested in removing hope from how you sell. And we talk a lot about sales here at Bulletproof Selling. I mean, it's in the title of the entire brand, Bulletproof Selling, right? But I need you to understand it's not just about selling. It really comes down to service. How can we make sure that we're delivering on our promises, delivering the value that we are showing up every day to deliver for our prospects and our customers? So since day one, we've had guests on this show, Hall of Fame speakers, best-selling authors, people that are out there leading sales teams, and folks from around the world that have a unique insight into how we can remove hope from the sales process through a variety of expertise. We've had people from social media. We've had people on here to talk about even the submitting of money process, right? You want to know how to get paid faster. We've had guests on there. When we get guests that have an engineering background, I'm especially interested because even though we're very military oriented here at Bulletproof Selling, the processes that make us successful on the battlefield absolutely transfer over into business. And so folks that can take something that to an outsider might look like a bunch of random events, but see the pattern and see how we could take that pattern and make it better. Well, these are the people that we can definitely learn from and become better at delivering value and serving our prospects and customers. So out of every single one of these episodes, we're going to create a sales system that you can use no matter the size of your team or the size of your goals. So that whatever that topic is that we cover, wherever we identify hope as entering the strategy more than it should, you'll have something to walk away with to make sure that you can remove a little more hope from how it is that you sell. Now, we talk a lot about process and systems here at Bulletproof Selling, but behind all of that is this mindset that we each have to walk into every single day with when we sell. It's the mindset that says, I'm not just here to make money, but I'm here to make a difference. I'm here to make a difference in the world and the lives of my prospects and customers so that I can improve my community, so that I can grow my company, so that I can provide a better quality of life for my family. All of those factor around this idea of intention. And when I was speaking with our guest today, right before the show started, well, I knew that this was probably going to be a topic that we could all benefit from, no matter what it is you sell in whatever industry. Having the right mindset, having the right intention is going to make a difference in how you sell and how you serve. So it's my pleasure to welcome today one of our international guests, Mr. Alan Versteeg. He is the CRO of Growth Matters, and he's coming to us all the way from Johannesburg, South Africa. I almost passed that one up too. But without further ado, Alan, welcome, sir, to Bulletproof Selling.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. Thanks for having me, and welcome to all the guests.
So, Alan, coming to us from international location, super curious to hear about your upbringing in sales. So many of our listeners are stateside based, and it's always interesting to me, and I know it will be to them, to learn about kind of the differences and the similarities in the sales careers that people might take, folks that are in an entirely different hemisphere. So tell us a little bit about your background and what got you into sales.
Yeah, interesting journey. So I'm from Dutch heritage. So I come from a lineage of engineers. It's what we pride ourselves in. And I fortunately lost my father when I was 12, but always wanted to be an engineer. So I studied electronic engineering. It wasn't my fault. I was watching Airwolf, Knight Rider, and MacGyver. So I thought that's what I was going to be doing. And I was in the job. I got my degree. I was doing electronic engineering. But I read a book called You're Born an Original, Don't Die a Copy. And there was a chapter that said, if you hate what you're doing for 2 weeks, you got to find something else. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm way too patient. It's been 2 years and I haven't enjoyed this. What can I do? And through a series of events, I ended up in sales and asked your guests not to leave now. Got fired from my first 4 sales jobs. And the frustration, Sean, was I had hope, I had all the right intentions, but the advice wasn't working. And they'd say, Alan, you need to know your product. Man, I was the world's best talking brochure. And that didn't help. And then they said, Alan, you need to be more motivated. Well, I was the most excited world's best talking brochure. And I had all these things, but as an engineer, I couldn't see the world in anything other than cause and effect. And I
Mm,
couldn't live with this thing that salespeople are born. And then there had to be something. There had to be something behind that. And a mentor, Sean, changed my life. He said, Al, is sales a job for you? Or is this a career? It was a tough question because I've got 3 sisters and a mom and a lineage of engineering. Everybody, gets the Hollywood view of sales. The kind of Wolf of Wall Street and how it was portrayed in Hollywood. We don't see that real intention. So in that moment, I said, no, it's a career. I said, well, how hard have you studied for this career? And it's in that moment that things changed for me. I realized if I'm going to treat this like a profession that it is, I've got to study like it's a profession. I've got to show up like it's a profession, not rock up. And then from there, started to build my success in sales, then get into sales development and sales manager development. But it was that understanding that, what I love about your work is where's the framework, where's the process that we can engineer the intention into the outcome as opposed to just having that hope. I had all the intention, I had the right desire to be customer centric, but you've got to have a strategy on the field.
mm.
And if you don't, your intentions have you floundering. And I love what you said in the start, Sean. Effectively, we're denying the market value. What I like to say to sales professionals, it's borderline negligent not to
Mm.
treat this as a profession because we are the economy. Nothing happens until something gets sold. So let's stop pretending, we're the something we do if there's nothing else to do. We're the front line of economy, but we have to engineer intention, not just hope.
So Alan just said something really interesting that is absolutely quote worthy. By not treating yourself as a professional, you are borderline negligent. So think of like a medical professional being negligent and the bad things that can result. As salespeople, if we're not showing up every day as professionals, and I'm going to get your insight into what you mean by that word in a second because it's powerful. We're not living up to our own potential, but we're not really serving the people that we're put here on earth to serve. So if we're not going to be professionals, we need to pick a different career path, one that we are willing to dedicate ourselves to. So, Alan, what do you mean by professional? Because there are tons of listeners right now, tons of viewers that are probably like, well, I show up every day on time. I'm working hard. I'm meeting my activity goals. Some weeks I do better than others. I think I'm a professional. Well, educate us. What do you mean by that?
So there's 2 components to it. Now, I want to use the language as a great way to separate these things. Many people say they're showing up, but they're actually just rocking up. And rocking up is I'll arrive in the moment and I'll rely on my personality and my intentions and my hope. And I'll say, you know what, I'm going to do the best I can right now. But showing up is different. Showing up is saying, am I prepared? Do I know what's required? Have I thought about this? And there's a value system that underpins this, Sean. It's not a skill set. I mean, one of my frustrations is we over-engineer sales training around competencies. Competencies are the outcome of coached action, but that comes from a lower surface. The lower surface is values, right? I'm tactful, I am creative, I am customer centric, but it's not just an intention. If that's the case, where's the evidence? I I make quite a provocative and bold statement with executives where I go, is your organization customer centric? They go, definitely. I said, show me the evidence.
Yeah.
What I
Where's the
mean?
evidence? Where's the objective facts here?
Yeah, well, show me the evidence. And they go, no, we definitely intend. So, but show me the evidence. And a classic example is most account plans, as an example, Sean, are data repositories to protect the business. An account plan should say, how do we protect, partner, and grow with our key accounts? And if that's in place, wonderful, right? But it's that part of what I love about your work is you can't just go into battle because you love your country, you're serving your country, you got some training. On the battlefield, the framework's got to guide you. And it's a live event. You can't pre-plan it all, but you can decide that today when I get on their battlefield, man, I've got to show up because the person to my right and the person left depends on it. And then you said a medical practitioner, they're professionals. Lawyers are professionals. What are professionals doing? They're always practicing. I mean, it's frustrating that doctors are still practicing. I don't want them practicing on me, or lawyers
Yeah.
are practicing, but sales professionals is a practice. We're practicing. We never arrive. I have reflection every week. I do my 5 to thrive, understand where my gaps are. Because guess what? Even Tiger Woods needs a coach. And this is the difference. We treat it as a profession. We're saying, you know what, this is where I'm not just going to rock up. I'm not just be on time and do my activities. There's an intention and a purpose. And there's a wonderful book, Sean, called Selling with Noble Purpose. She says that making a living and making a difference are not mutually exclusive. They're collective. And sometimes that's the one thing I see, Sean, is salespeople don't give themselves agency to earn, because it's almost like by doing that, they're taking something. What we don't realize is top performers earn because we're giving. It's
Yeah.
service oriented, and it's not just intention. Service oriented means I am prepared as best I can be for my sales calls, for my account planning, for my coaching sessions, because I'm not dabbling. There's enough dabbling. This is my profession. And
And
that's
that's
the shift
something
that I
that
think.
I love sharing the idea between a job and a profession. You can have a job and be a dabbler, but you can't be a professional and be a dabbler. And so then I often
Mm.
ask salespeople, well, really high performing ones, tell me the difference between when you treated this as a job and when it became a profession to you. And time again, and I heard this across the military as well, the professionals can tell me I made a decision that I was going to be better tomorrow than I was today. And I can look at the facts and tell you how I'm better today than I was yesterday. Not because I hope that I got there, but because I put the strategies, the plans, the processes in place to make sure I was learning from my mistakes, to make sure I was capturing my wins. And all of those things tie together into this larger sales
Mhm.
process that is service focused. So I'll ask you the same question, Alan, that I ask every single one of our guests. And I know we're going to build something fun out of this. With all the companies that you work with all the CROs and the sales managers that you get to lead, folks that were really high performers and are now in that leadership position, where do you see them relying on hope more than they should throughout the sales process? Because I know you get to coach them through every aspect of it, but where do you see hope entering the picture more than it should?
There's two areas, and I like to take two lenses on this information. The first lens is the belief that if I hope to do something, I can do it well.
Mm,
And the problem with hope is wonderful, but I just want to take your term, bulletproof selling. Bulletproof means I create a shield around me, right? And that shield has to say, I have hope, which is inside of me, but outside of me, I'm protecting that hope. I'm building a shield because I'm intentional about what I do. I
mm,
have an intentional, I like to say, I engineer intention into my hope. I don't just wait, hope it happens. It's intention. That's the one area. From a leadership perspective, they hope that if they talk about the number enough, behavior will change.
mm,
Leaders aren't taking ownership of developing the systems and frameworks that make the intention the profession. And that's the shift, right? The intention becomes the profession. And hope is wonderful because hope is it's that level of optimism, right? But there's a wonderful Simon Sinek quote, Sean. He says, optimism is not the denial of reality.
mm.
It's the awareness of what we can influence. And the problem sometimes with hope is we're expecting, we hope the weeds will leave our garden, and we hope our mother-in-law won't complain at Thanksgiving. We hope these things, right? But that's not taking control. That's giving away our personal power. Hope is saying I can and I will, and finding is what you do, Sean, those frameworks and processes that say, okay, great, let's bridge this gap practically.
Mhm.
We have the intention, we have the hope with the direction, we have the value system. Let's bring those together. And that was my mistake, was I had all the pieces of the puzzle, but I didn't have the recipe, had all the ingredients in place. And I think what salespeople lack
So
is the ability to think
let's
about the
talk about a
recipe
system
and
around
where
this
your
then, because
work
I think it
strong,
would
Sean,
be
is
it'd be really helpful
very
to
simple.
tie this together into that practical element, because a topic that I think could serve us
Yep.
at any stage of our sales career or any place in the sales cycle would be the idea of identifying as a salesperson what is within my control. This is something that I struggle with as a salesperson every day because I'd love to be able to serve more. I'd love to be able to deliver more. I'd love to be able to earn more, but I can't make anybody pull the trigger on a product or a service. All I
Yep.
have to do is identify what are the things that I can control and then be good at the end of the day, well, all the activity behind me to say, did I influence all the things that I could control to the best of my ability? And if I did that, then that's a successful day because progress is the way that we turn just random events into process. So I'd love to build this around the idea of identifying what we can control. Now we're going to have to make it pretty wide reaching because we're going to be dealing with a salesperson, Alan, that is brand new in the industry. They've got, 100 calls they have to make in the course of a day. What can they control in that? And we may be dealing with an account executive that's only managing 10 accounts, but $1 billion in revenue across those 10 accounts. How do they identify the things they can control as well? So when we talk about battlefield systems, every single one that we used allowed us to trim hope away from our strategy a little bit more. So in sales, same way, we're trimming hope. So we use this acronym TRIM. The T in TRIM is the trigger. Now, if I'm a salesperson, wherever I am in my career, whatever challenge I'm dealing with in my sales cycle, where could I trigger the system that we're about to build? Is it when I notice that I'm not reaching my goals? Is it when I'm experiencing a little cognitive dissonance? Like I know I'm supposed to be achieving this, but it's just not going as far as I want it to on these calls. How do I know to begin assessing what are the things that I can control?
Okay, excellent. So I'll get to the trigger. If you look at the system, if I go through the system as I see it, these are the 4 areas in your control. It's mindset, tool set, help set, skill set, and help set, right? So it's mindset, tool set, skill set, and help set. The trigger should be, what's the story I'm telling myself and how does it serve me? Because that's normally the underlying challenge. There's a narrative that I'm taking on. Now remember, our thoughts are just opinions, they're not facts. We can decide what they mean, but what often happens, Sean, is that trigger it's a narrative. It's the market, it's the situation, it's the buyer. And the minute we don't take ownership, we give away personal power and we make it an external thing outside of our circle of influence. So now we don't have a strategy because now we're going, well, guess what? It's a bad battlefield, or it's a bad territory, or I don't have air cover, or whatever the metaphor is. In that moment, you don't have that luxury because in real military terms, your life's on the line. But in sales, it's no different. So it starts with mindset, saying, wait a minute, what is the story telling yourself, and does it serve you? Not is it factual, right? I get frustrated. People there's a fact and there's a truth. Fact is the reality. Truth is what you make it. And I got to take that truth and say, wait a minute, but this doesn't serve me. And a good example is, if I'm not a Monday person, I tell myself I'm not a Monday person. How do I feel on a Monday? I feel de-energized. Then what happens on Monday is I don't apply the best strategies. I don't practice the profession, and I have a bad Monday. I go, you see, I told you I'm not a Monday person. So mindset is a trigger. So when you're stuck, when it's not the numbers, before you go external, come internal and say, wait a minute, what's the narrative? What's the internal excuse I'm owning that isn't serving me? Now, once you're there, you say, oh, I hear you, but the problem is I don't know how to get from here. Okay, well, where are the tools? What's around you? What's in your belt? What's in your bag? What's in your kits? What's the tool set I can lean on? Because that's what often happens as salespeople. We treat planning tools as admin tools. They're not. A good account plan is a wonderful planning tool. A good call plan is excellent to show up, not rock up. But we dismiss the tools because we're so good at what we do, because of all the right intention. And that hope is robbing us of showing up. So it's that tool set.
Love it.
By
So
having the right mindset and using the tools, skills develop.
We've got the story that I tell myself and asking, is it serving me? And then you actually gave us the 4 steps of the R in TRIM, which is making it repeatable. But we're going to dive into those in just a second because I've got one more question for you. If I recognize that, hey, this story I'm telling myself isn't serving me, what's the bridge then to pause and ask myself, well, what do I need to change, or what is the story I should be telling myself so that I can leverage my mindset, tool set, skill set, and help set? Where's the bridge between recognizing it's a bad narrative and actually making a difference?
Yeah, so the key thing is then saying, if this is the story I own is the story I own is the story I live. So what specifically was within my influence that contradicts the story that will give me a story that serves me? And the point is this, remember, it's a narrative. It's not true. It's just a story. So the point is you always have to disconnect. I call them the roommates inside my head. I silence those roommates inside my head and saying, wait a minute, this isn't serving us, guys. Come on, let's talk about it. We're on the battlefield. This doesn't serve us. And someone's going to say, yeah, Albert, remember that customer that rejected us? Remember that time you tried this? I know we've done there, been there. So I said to the roommates, guys, keep quiet. This isn't going to get us through this battle, right? Other ones say, no, don't worry. Let's have hope. Optimistic. So the bridge is, what is the story that will serve me, right? And for me, it's the first one that is negative. I go, it is negligent for me not to take ownership of my profession. That's the first one. So I say, this is negligent. This is not how you operate. So I have to shock my system. And I go, what would it look like to be professional in this space? How would you have to show up? And then things start to change. I'd have to show up as a different person. And I mean, Sean, we know this, but I mean, you're probably better than me, but we have to be before we can do, before we can have. And
Yeah.
I think we're so focused on the doing, forget the being, right? Because when you have that noble intent, when you have that right thing, you have a system in place, you can bridge it. The problem is once I'm there, I'm going, wonderful, Al, great story. How are you going to do this?
And
Which is
now
where your system, your
that's
film
going to be the
system starts
repeatable
coming to
element.
place,
So
which is how do we
let's
do
dive
it?
into that. We've got 4 elements that you mentioned, and I'm really excited to dive into each of these because I can see the potential already. Mindset, tool set, skill set, and help set. So let's dive into mindset first as the first of our repeatable steps. I've identified a bad narrative. I've owned, okay, well, if I was going to change this, what would that narrative look like if I was going to be positively oriented? Now I'm going to pick up the tools and build the house. Start with mindset. What do I need to be doing with my mindset to
Yes.
overcome any bad narrative?
The number one thing is, how do I show up as a professional? It's the
Hmm.
first question you got to be asking yourself. How do I show up as a professional? It's the first trigger, because what that does is it steps away and says that doesn't serve me as a professional, right? And the word negligent is powerful because the opposite is you're negligent. You're negligent in your profession. So it triggers an emotional shift,
Yep.
and that's the mindset
Okay.
one. The first one is, how do I need to show up as a professional?
All right. And what about tool set?
Tool set is then, where is this? If I'm in a conversation, what is the tool set to have a relevant conversation? If it's an account executive or managing a key account, how do I better partner, protect, and grow? So looking at your organization, the support systems in place, where are the tools that have repeatable, proven ways to doing things? Stop treating them like, well, you're going to do it your own way. The recipe doesn't make me the chef. If I have the right ingredients, the right recipe, I still bring Ellen to the table. And Sean's going to make a meal one way, Al's going to make another way. We're going to make the same meal. It's going to taste different. Don't deny your authenticity because you're following a process. Look at those tools, look at those processes, and leverage them. Add your flavor to it, but
I
don't
love it.
dismiss them. And I think that's the concern, Sean. I don't think there's a shortage of tools in sales. I think there's a dismissive nature going, well, that's not the way I do things. Well, imagine if your heart surgeon said, well, I don't really have a process. I kind of figured it out on the day.
No, that's not acceptable. So I love this idea then of tool set. What tools do I need to address this problem in this part of my sales cycle? Because, like I said, we're going to make this very applicable across the sales cycle. If you're on the early stage and you realize that none of the leads you're calling on are qualified, what tool set do I need to better qualify my leads then before outreach? Or if I'm at the tail end of the sales cycle, I'm not getting enough
Yeah,
referrals. What tools do I need then to take satisfied customers and
yeah,
generate more referrals? And once I understand what those tools are, then I can ask, hey, where are they in my organization? Have they been created? And if they haven't been
mm,
created, who can help me create them? Is there a peer I have on my team that's
yeah,
really good at doing this? Let's create that tool together and share it with the team. Do I have a sales leader that has a lot of experience doing this? Let's tap that sales leader
yeah.
and make sure we get that information out of their heads. So we've got mindset, tool set. Now let's move into skill set. What am I doing with skill set to overcome that narrative and make a change?
And yes, yeah, yeah, such an important point. And just come back to saying is, when
Yeah.
we get to tool set, we're overwhelmed with our tool set. And if you think about the military metaphor, you got to choose the right thing in the right situation. You can't be bringing everything out and going, let me try and do it all, because that didn't work. So it's finding that tool set. The skill set's so important because I think what happens with many sales professionals, we hope to get good at selling. But there's a wonderful quote by Buckminster Fuller. He says, if you want to change people's thinking, don't bother teaching them. Give them a tool, the use of which leads to new thinking. So what salespeople don't realize is when we come up with the right mindset and we practice a repeatable pattern, it's through doing that we learn the skill. Because we can go on the theory of riding a bicycle, we can understand the bicycle, we can understand the mechanics, we can be excellent at understanding, but you have to get on that bicycle. So with skill set, you want to make sure that you're doing something and that you've got tools that guide you. You reflect and you go, what can I improve? What can I do? I sort of pause there, don't ruminate. Ruminate is woulda, coulda, shoulda. Destroys the soul. You want to reflect. What is within my circle of influence that I can do better? What can I improve or remove? And every day you're trimming. What happens is that 1% trim every day, Sean, just moves you forward and forward. So skill set, there's many skills. I mean, sales is a 29 competency profession. It's not simple. But when we understand the tools we use in that moment, you get better at that area. In military, sometimes it's navigating, sometimes it's communicating, sometimes it's leading, sometimes it's fighting. It's not the same thing all the time. And what we tend to do is we think we can drop sales soldiers in a classroom 2 days and it's all done. And so I love your approach. What's the framework that recipe I can deploy? So skill set is the outcome of what we need to do. And I'm going to jump to help set because
Yeah.
you've already gotten there. When I'm stuck, ask for help. Go to that peer group, go to that sales leader, pick up a book. You know, when I said earlier, this is a profession. Is this audience studying? I mean, you're on this podcast, so we're probably preaching to the converted. But I mean, I read 50 books a year, of which about 30 are related to my profession, because I want to be at the top end of that game, not to be better than anyone, but to serve my customer. As a military person, want to serve their country. You got to be realizing this isn't something you just get deployed and hope it works. You're always building that profession.
Yeah, there's always a lot of training before those deployments and then a lot of learning during the deployment. So this is where I want to bring in the I in trim because we've got a great trigger, 4 great repeatable steps, but I want to make sure that this system gets better over time. And so what do I need to do to improve the way that I'm leveraging mindset, tool set, skill set, and help set? And how often do I need to look at the system as a whole and figure out where can I improve it? How do I get faster results? How do I re-engineer this so I'm able to serve my customers more as I get better? How do I improve it?
So for me, it's a simple system I put in place. I do it weekly. It's called 5 to Thrive. 5 to Thrive says, how well did I improve or align to what I plan to do? Right. So it's understanding, scoring, and then the second one is give yourself a score because emotions don't matter. I did well, I did great, doesn't matter. On a scale of 1 to 10, how well did I master and improve these 4 areas? And then I'm going to get a score. And the score is less important than the next question. Let's say I give myself a 6. What stopped it from being a 7 or 8 this week? And I list a few things. And then on those things, I go, of those, what are within my circle of influence? Because we have to let go of the fact that, as you know, Sean, if you're on the battlefield, if you're in the field, we can't control everything. We can't control irate customers or traffic jams or whatever it may be. There's things outside of our influence that we just give too much energy. So I release myself of what I can't control. Then I ask what's within my control. What's the one thing in the next week I need to improve or remove? So I'm always trimming. So I love the trim thing. I'm always trimming. And there's a wonderful quote from, I think it's Joseph Badariko. Without reflection, we drift. Others shape and direct us. But with reflection, we can improve or even bend the trajectory of our lives. In sales, it's such a powerful thing because we face this difference on that battlefield every week. But if we're just in autopilot, we don't grow. So the I is critical. That improve is about reflection. It's not about rumination. It's not, oh, I'm so bad. Okay, it was a 5. There's a whole bunch of things that happen that I can't control. But you know what I could have done better? Is I could have better showed up for that podcast, or better showed up at that meeting. I could have done that one thing better. And then it's aware in my mind. And for your audience, Sean, you know this, but this is what happens. Your brain starts to automatically reflect. So when you're about to make the wrong decision, your brain says, buddy, on Friday or Saturday, you're going to reflect on this and you're going to go, I didn't like that choice. So now you're self-governing and you're not on autopilot. You're highly aware of what that looks like. So that I in your trim is probably one of the most critical because it's no point, practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent.
That's right.
So if you continuously practice a bad golf swing and do nothing to improve, it just becomes predictably bad at golf.
I want to make sure I capture these 5 for myself because, it's no surprise to any of my listeners. I'm always talking about how I use what we talk about and learn. I probably benefit more than any of my listeners do because I take these systems and I put them to work in my sales cycle. So I've got the questions to ask in your 5 to Thrive. How well did I improve or align with my goals? On a 1 to 10, how did I do? What stopped me from being higher, whatever number I gave myself? What stopped me from being higher? What's in my circle of influence that, of all the things that happened to get me to that number, 6 or 8 or 10, what was in my circle of influence?
Yep.
And the final one I want to make sure I capture, I think I heard, what change will I make and by when? What am I actually going to do differently? Or what is number 5 for you on that?
So it's 2 components. What do I need to improve and or remove?
I got you.
Because sometimes it's something we've got to remove. So it's 4 is improve, 5 is remove. So, and then you repeat that cycle, which is, the I in your trim, always improving. But it's improve and or remove. Because sometimes you don't have to get better at something. You just got to stop doing something that isn't serving you.
That's right.
It could be a narrative, it could be a story, it could be a skill. You got to just remove it. It doesn't serve me.
Yeah, it's one of the most powerful time management questions I ever heard was not what am I going to start doing, but what am I going to stop doing? And that is absolutely applicable for salespeople. So if we've got the trigger, repeatable, improvable, let's move into the M in trim, which is measurable. The objective outcome of any system is that I should be able to measure its impact to know, is this system worth continuing? Is it worth my time? So if I'm taking the time to do these steps when I need to improve, I could be making sales calls, maybe not as effectively, but that's taking time away from my activity. So how do I measure the results of this? Is it that I begin to see difference in this one area that I was struggling with, that I was saying, it was just an incorrect narrative? How do I measure the results of this? And feel free to dive into leading indicators as well, because I want to. If I got a long sales cycle, Alan, I want to make sure I'm seeing results sooner than the 18 months it's going to take me to close this deal. So talk to me about measurement.
So I think the key thing, you've touched on this, Sean, and this is the massive shift you have to take. I want us to take back to the eye and why it becomes measurable. Because what we tend to do is we treat sales like cannonball management, right? In cannonball management, we fire the cannonball, we miss the target, we hit the target, and then we debate, right? So someone says it's because we got the wrong gunpowder, or the operator's a dunce, or there's weather conditions, or the engineers, we say it's because the brake force on the wheel can't handle the reverberation of the turret. So we sound the smartest. So
Right.
it sounds like the right answer, but it's debate. You have to have a sales professional. You have to move to cruise missile management. Cruise missile management means that I have a reflection, a satellite that's measurement and feedback, measurement and feedback. And the lag factors will take care of themselves when you define the lead factors. And that's where you got to strip out the hope. I'm going to hit that target because I'm correcting all the time. And that 5 to thrive is a piece in the eye, but what's measurable is what you're trying to change, right? So, for example, when COVID hit, it's panic. I mean, my job is to get on a plane, fly to countries, put people in a room, train them how to be great sales managers and leaders, and spread the word to the world. And now I'm, stuck in Johannesburg, can't get out of this thing. And after licking the wounds, you're going to step up and saying, "Wait a minute, what is the one thing I want to measure?" And my measurement, Sean, was I want to make sure that at the end of the week, when someone's been completely fatigued by Zoom or Teams meetings, they remember mine. They remember that was a valuable time spent. So that was what I wanted to move in that area. And that became my focus of my 5 to thrive. So you got to identify those areas. That's where the help set's important. Identify the areas where you want to move and set that as a lead factor. The lag factors take care of themselves. As you know, we don't win wars, we win battles. And the first battle we win in military is the battle of our mindset. All right, so it comes back to your TRIM model. So identify what the measures are along the journey. Otherwise, it's only hope, because that's what it is. When I see cannonball, I see the trajectory of hope. Let's hope we hit the target. Cruise missile management, the shift we make, we measure and identify what are we trying to move. And they're different at different times. As I'm moving more into podcasts, more into what I call the front man of the band, my public speaking skills, my ability to address the audience, these are the areas I'm working on as part of my sales profession. But that's what I want to grow next. So it's to each individual what they're going to identify is the area they want to move, and then use reflection as a powerful tool in your I model that then says, okay, I'm correcting this cruise missile. I'm not, I'm completely off track, too late. It's let's continue to get it on track. And that's a lifelong thing, right, as you improve any profession.
Those micro adjustments allow us to leave from one place and get to an entirely different location on time, no matter what happens in the environment, wind shift, all the fun things that could occur, the environmental changes, economic changes. So, Alan, great sales system end to end, from taking a mindset that doesn't serve us, identifying what we can affect, and taking real action to make that change in an accountable way so that we're able to sell more and serve more. I've had a lot of fun in this conversation, capturing notes furiously. You're throwing out quotes like you're a database of wisdom. So I appreciate that for the listeners as well. If people want more of you, and I know they're going to, where do they find out more about you and about Growth Matters? How do they connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they'll pick it up in the show notes, but they can find me on LinkedIn, Alan Versteeg. It's a fortunately unique name. You can see, as we say it in South Africa, we're clearing our throat, Versteeg, but Versteeg is fine. So you'll find me there. We're on LinkedIn. We've got our website, Growth Matters, INTL, International, INTL.com. And really there it's about focusing on the sales manager and the sales management profession.
I know anybody that goes to that website is going to get some good stuff out of it. And of course, connect with Alan on LinkedIn for any of the listeners out there. I know that he's got some good stuff ahead of him. I can tell already. So, Alan, thanks for showing up here. And for all the viewers and listeners out there, if you're catching us on our live stream channel on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe. For the podcast listeners on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere that podcasts can be found, hit that subscribe button, leave us a review. Let salespeople know that hope does not have to be part of their sales strategy. Alan, thanks for showing up here and giving back to the sales community after I know it's given us so much. let's get out there, sir. And as you said, make selling bulletproof.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks, Kes.